So our first question for tonight goes, may I know when one is going to perform a meritorious deed, for instance, to invite my parents or parents-in-law to partake in a meritorious dana event? I notice that there are times of hindrances and challenges. Is this because of the ripening of one's karma? That's the first part of the question.
Maybe I'll answer that first. Well, of course, it's a great act of kindness to introduce people, particularly family members, friends, to the Dhamma, or to encourage them in the Dhamma if they already know the Dhamma. So in-laws, yep, it is good to find ways to get them to the Dhamma, because that's going to help your partner, everyone. It's a way of showing gratitude to them, just as we show gratitude to our own parents, by getting them to practice Dhamma, hear the Dhamma. In terms of when is the best time, when is it? Well, sometimes it's just when it's convenient. So you have to, if it's a dana event, you've invited Sangha to your house, or you're going to the monastery to make offerings and you want everyone to join. Well, you just have to look around to try and pick the most convenient time for everyone. And it may never be perfect, but you just do your best and try and book everyone and try and get it happening. And of course, there will be obstacles and hindrances. Sometimes it's our own obstacle. Many people, they're about to go and offer dana and then they fall ill, or they fall over and break their leg, or something comes up at work or something. There's always obstacles, but you do your best. And one thing is, if you practice dana regularly, you'll get good at it. And that includes getting good at persuading other people to practice dana and offer dana, and getting them involved and understanding how to deal with those hindrances better. If you do something regularly, like offering dana in terms of offering meals or requisites, or joining meditation retreats, or any kind of skillful action in what you might call Buddhist practice, if you do it regularly and often, you get better at it. And you also get better at showing other people how to do it, learning how to encourage others to do it. It may take months and even years of practice, so you just keep going. But regular, frequent practice is what will bring results, I would say. If it doesn't work at first, if at first you don't succeed, then try and try again. And partly it's on you, isn't it? How much effort, patient effort you're going to put into this task of bringing your in-laws or whoever it is to the Dhamma, and supporting them in that. How sincere you are. If you just give up after the first event, it didn't work, and you just give up, well, of course, you won't get very far. But if you keep going, maybe one day they'll appreciate that. Especially with families, you have to remember there's always a lot of sort of superficial stuff going on one level, on the surface. But on the inner side, on the level of the heart, sometimes other things are going on. So, in-laws are often, it's their job to be cold, indifferent, critical, bossy. Everyone has their story of mother-in-law, father-in-law, that kind of thing. Often their initial reaction and behavior is a bit challenging for you, perhaps. But that doesn't mean to say on the level of the heart it's a lost cause. It may be on the inside they're opening up to you or to the Dhamma, and things can grow and improve from there. It's just they're still caught into their habitual ways of relating to the daughter-in-law, son-in-law, and everyone's been scolded by their in-laws. That's just part of it. But maybe work on the level of the heart as well. Metta, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and in the long run, that may win out. And I see that all the time. Families who are helping each other on the level of the heart through the practice, and putting up with the comments and the words and the behavior that is maybe not so peaceful or conducive to harmony, but on the level of the heart, good things are happening. So trust in that, trust in your good intention, and trust in the power of the Dhamma to heal people, open people up. And the classic there is the lady Visakha, who managed to win over her father-in-law, who wasn't Buddhist and didn't like the Buddha and his monks, but she managed to show him that the Buddha is a very wise, good teacher, and the monks are worthy of support. And took some effort, but she managed to win him over. So if you're stuck with your in-laws, just think of the lady Visakha. Maybe in your meditation, you can meditate and ask for the barami of Visakha. May I have the wisdom of Visakha, the compassion, the faith of Visakha, the patience of Visakha, and may I overcome this obstacle with my in-laws or whoever it may be.
Sadhu Luang Por. The next part of the question goes, also, when doing an act of dana, can one make an aspiration, if I did this dana, may I have good and supportive conditions for me to attend retreats in future, etc.? Is this wholesome, as it seems like I am grasping instead of letting go?
Well, it's a skillful means. If you're doing it like you just described in your question, it's not necessarily grasping. You're seeking to further your practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, looking for good causes and conditions to support that. And of course, there are many obstacles and difficulties to practicing in the world as a layperson: family commitments, work commitments, health, money, wars, all kinds of things. There are obstacles, of course. So making determinations and plans to practice, if done skillfully with understanding, is not just a blind attachment or a problem. It's something you probably need to do as well. So yes, make your determination as a meditation. Retreats are a good way to learn the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma. So you have your overall long-term goal to attend retreats, practice more. So everything I do may facilitate that and bring me to have the opportunity to practice. But all determinations and resolutions have to be made in a balanced way and with understanding, with compassion, with patience. So it's not necessarily that you get everything you want straight away, but you're directing your mind towards the practice and looking for opportunities to improve your practice. And so if you're patient, I'm sure those opportunities will arise, and I wish them for you. May you have many opportunities to go on meditation retreats and practice the Dhamma.
Sadhu. Next question. Dear Ajahn, in a talk you said the world is out of control.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of self keeps deluding us and making us think we can control the world. Can you please explain this? Thank you very much.
Who could control the whole world? You just open the newspaper and you'll realize, it's way beyond one person to control. But you can control yourself. That's the Buddhist path, isn't it? And from learning to develop yourself in a wise, skillful way, you can influence the world and have a good impact on the world around you, on the people and the environment around you. But you have to start with yourself, because you can't influence or change other people very much. You certainly can't, affect the whole globe, the whole world. It's too big, too much, too many people, too much happening. It's beyond your influence. But your mind, your body, your mind, what you do, what you say, what you think, how you train and develop your mind, do you have some influence on that? So start there. It's a more practical approach, I would say. And you control yourself by understanding through wisdom. There's something, wisdom knows what you can control, what you can't. So with yourself, you know you can't stop your body getting older every day and feeling heat and cold and hungry and full, and you can have a little bit of influence on your body and the material world around you. And the same with your mind. You can't get rid of memories, as I was saying tonight. You can't just wipe out memory and say, I have an unpleasant memory, I never want to have to think of that again. You can't just destroy or get rid of memory, but you can treat memory with wisdom, can't you? You can know a memory, as something that is a function of the mind, but you don't have to grasp at it with a strong sense of self-identity so that it creates some kind of suffering. You can be mindful of a memory arising and know this is a memory, even an unpleasant, traumatic one. If you are patient enough, mindful enough, and you use wisdom, you can deal with even trauma, can't you? It may take time, effort, but you can. So we can learn to understand this mind and get through to the real mind, which is the mind that just knows in an undefiled way. Because most of the time we're with the mind that is still caught into greed, anger, and delusion and this sense of self, and that's where we keep creating suffering. So keep developing your mindfulness, your ability to reflect back on your own body and mind and see them as they are, as impermanent, as not self.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Greetings, Ajahn. If the lifespan of the Peta ghost is different from humans, can we suppose that our deceased grandparents or teachers are still hanging around us? Sadhu.
Well, hopefully your grandparents and teachers did not get reborn as hungry ghosts. Otherwise, I'm in for trouble. So yes, beings in other realms, they say, have longer lifespans than humans because they don't have a coarse physical body that degenerates so quickly. So some hungry ghosts do hang around for a long time, but they're hanging around and suffering. So this is why we share merits, particularly with hungry ghosts, because they're in a state of suffering. Unfortunately, as the Buddha pointed out, they say, an awful lot of people die having made negative karma, experiencing unhappy states of mind, different kinds of attachments. So they may be reborn as ghosts or even in hell realms. A smaller number are reborn as devas in more happy, pleasant, wholesome rebirths. But we shouldn't be careless here. We shouldn't be heedless, should we? We should practice the path, cultivate dana, sila, bhavana, listen to the Dhamma and respect the Dhamma of the Buddha as much as we can, because you're constantly learning and educating your mind, improving your mind as you do that. The merits, the wholesome karma you develop will keep bringing your mind up, whereas negative karma drags your mind down. So if you keep practicing and developing wholesome karma, you bring your mind up, well, you'll fear death less and less and less, because you know death is really just the death of the body, and the mind doesn't die and goes according to karma. So if you keep making good karma, there's less to fear, aren't there? Less to fear of consequences and anxiety about what's going to happen next. So the best kind of karma to make is meditation, samatha meditation, learn to one point your mind, vipassana meditation, develop insight into the Four Noble Truths, three characteristics, free your mind from craving and attachment, no problem. That's our aim. And then there's no more fear about birth, rebirth, and all of that.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next question. Is secular Buddhism true Dhamma?
Or it's a pretty general statement. I guess the true Dhamma is based around the Four Noble Truths. So if an individual is penetrating the Four Noble Truths, they understand dukkha as dukkha, they're abandoning craving and attachment, the cause of dukkha, they're realizing the cessation of dukkha, and they're cultivating the path leading to the end of dukkha, the Eightfold Path. That's the true Dhamma, and that will give its result, Magga Phala Nibbana, which is what we want, the end of suffering. So, just saying secular Buddhism is a very general term, isn't it? There can be many people in the world practicing quite well, whether they call themselves secular Buddhists or non-Buddhists. Goodness is not confined to Buddhism. Wisdom is not confined to Buddhism, but in the higher sense, according to the words of the Buddha, and I think I would agree with this 100%, you have to cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path in its complete form, in order to receive the fruits, Magga Phala Nibbana, the end of suffering. So if you do that in a secular way, sometimes that's associated with thoughts of, I don't believe in rebirth or other realms of existence and that. Well, it's not essential to begin practicing the Dhamma to believe in rebirth and other beings and invisible beings and realms of existence. I didn't begin thinking about those things, but gradually some of those aspects of the Buddhist teachings became more apparent to me as I practiced. But you don't need to really believe in them, and what I understand, maybe I don't understand secular Buddhism that well because I don't really study it. I'm a Buddhist monk. I study the full Buddhism. But anyway, if secular Buddhism is helping you to understand the Four Noble Truths, helping you to remove greed, anger, and delusion from your mind, bringing you more peace, contentment, compassion, wisdom, go for it. Whatever works. The proof is in the eating of the pudding. Always back to food again. So, the proof is in the eating. Look at the results of your practice, and if you're becoming more peaceful, wiser, good. Keep going.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next question. Bhante, how do I let go of craving and clinging for fame, power, and position in my work life? Through mindfulness, I am more aware of kilesa, but the mental kilesa is so strong that the perceptions and stories are proliferating. How do I uproot them?
Yeah, it's challenging living in this world, in this day and age, because that's what everyone thinks of as happiness, don't they? What we call the worldly dhammas: fame, fortune, power, influence, wealth, everything. All of these things are what the average person is aspiring to, because we're surrounded by that belief that this is real happiness. And then if you want to get on in your job, then it's very hard not to get onto that treadmill and go in that way of thinking. But Buddhism encourages us to come back, to basics. So I would try and readjust your values a bit and say, well, you want to do a good job, whatever your career path is, whatever your job is, fine. But try to see, first of all, that, these worldly goals are very ephemeral, they're very impermanent, uncertain, here today, gone tomorrow. They're not really lasting happiness. Contemplate that, reflect on that in your life. Where is your real happiness going to come from? So I would come back to basics, like a happy body and mind in the present moment. So cultivating dana, sila, bhavana, or the Buddhist path brings you that happiness in the present moment. But that doesn't clash with trying to do a good job, whatever job you're doing, with using your intelligence, your mindfulness, your energy to do a good job. But just remember that job is not the end of the story. It's only a means to an end. It's part of your path. Getting a job so you've got money to feed yourself, maybe support your family, fine. You're trying to do that in a way where you're not hurting yourself or others, not creating suffering for yourself or others. So that's where you have to look at a craving and attachment for fame and fortune and success. And sometimes people misunderstand. They think pursuing their job with a lot of ambition is correct. Doing a good job is, you've got to do it with a lot of ambition to the point where they actually hurt themselves, physically get burnt out, tired, mentally get stressed, maybe hurt other people in the process of trying to do a good job, as they say. So try and introduce the spiritual dimension to your work, your attitude, your values as you work, and see, well, our highest goal is peaceful, content mind where you're seeing the Dhamma, you understand the Four Noble Truths more. And that merely pursuing wealth, fame, fortune, influence as an end in itself, you're always going to be disappointed because it's impermanent and you can't hold on to it. Just keep reflecting on that. And one day you'll find you get it. Your mind gets it and it says, oh, this is not actually the source of happiness. The peaceful mind is a better source of happiness, a higher happiness. That will take time, I would say. Partly it means adjusting your values and the way you look at things, understand things. Partly it comes through practice. So do some meditation. Pursue your career, of course, but do a bit of meditation every day. Try and keep the precepts and practice some generosity and dana, and I think you'll find your mind starts to change.
Sadhu Luang Por. Next question. Ajahn, thank you for your kindness and compassion. You mentioned about catching the defilement or unpleasant feeling of seeing someone. Could Ajahn share some ways of how to catch the feeling in a just-in-time basis and how to deal with the unpleasant feeling?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? It's tricky, isn't it? It's fast. It depends on the depths of the attachment and the defilement, doesn't it? Some people you have a mild irritation for, but basically you love. So perhaps it's easier to catch it with those people. The perception of kindness, friendliness, love is stronger. So when the perception of aversion, annoyance is triggered, it seems out of place, or you pick it up quicker because the underlying attitude of the mind is more one of kindness, friendliness, perhaps. But then there's others who have maybe really hurt us deeply, and so you're really stuck. Keep repeating the same mistake, as it were. Keep thinking of them in that negative way. Keep reinforcing the feeling, the unpleasant feeling, the suffering that comes with it. So you have to work harder. Well, whether it's someone you generally like but have fallen out with temporarily, or it's someone you've fallen out with very badly or have a very bad opinion of, whatever, you have to work at it. It's work, it's practice, isn't it? And partly it's proactive, meaning cultivating the attitude of kindness and compassion regularly before you've even got angry with anyone, or before you've seen or thought of the person who makes you angry. You're already cultivating kindness and compassion on a daily basis through body, speech, and mind on all these levels. It's one thing. And then also using some wisdom, so you're alert to those problems that you have, the problem person, whether it's a memory, so you already have a plan in place. And when I start thinking of that person, I'm going to have to start looking at it in a different way if I want to free myself from this anguish that they keep triggering. You have to change your way of thinking. So the Buddha said, think about anything good about that person you can. On the very basic level, even your worst enemy is still a human being that wants to be happy. They're still subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death. You can see something in them that doesn't trigger anger. If you can focus your mind on that, that will help. Also, seeing the suffering of anger. When I'm angry, I'm suffering. I don't want to suffer, therefore it's in my best interest to let go of this anger. You're looking at looking at it from different angles, as a feeling, as an experience, in terms of the thoughts, the attitudes, and then you're looking for skillful ways to undermine your craving and attachment that leads you to habitually act with anger. Partly by becoming more familiar with kindness and compassion, and you can introduce that to your thinking. Partly through practicing mindfulness, being more aware, more alert. Partly using wisdom, so you've got a strategy and a way of reflecting to help you deal with the anger when it arises. So sometimes you're late. You're dealing with this anger after the event. You've already been angry. But that's better than nothing. Go back and reflect on what happened, why, what's going on in your mind, why do I keep getting angry with this guy? And then work out a few strategies, what you can do next time, how you can change. And then, as I said, go back to the preventative practice. Just cultivate kindness and compassion regularly, so that becomes more the default mode of your thinking, and anger becomes more and more out of place in your thinking. Then you'll notice it quicker. You'll see it. Oh, just like when you clean your clothing, you have a shirt, you clean it. Then when you get a speck of dirt on it, you notice the dirt because the shirt is clean. So you keep practicing, you'll pick up things quicker and you'll be more alert to the dangers.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Does being frugal mean limiting what one owns? Sometimes I feel I deny myself something better that I deserve. What is the right practice?
Try to wisely reflect on it. How much do you need? What are your needs? What are your priorities? What are less important in terms of food, accommodation, clothing, comforts? And try not to go to extremes. Sometimes we deny ourselves pleasure and comfort to the point where we're miserable. And sometimes we indulge. And the Buddha talked about the middle way of practice leading to the end of suffering. And the middle way steers away from the extremes of sensual indulgence, always following the desire, becoming obsessed with everything you like and love and want. And you have your own idea of this, always having a good time, always being lazy, indulging, eating, sleeping, being merry all the time. It's not going to get you, it's not going to develop the Eightfold Path for you, because you're spending too much time indulging in pleasure and comfort. And also the less popular, but still the other extreme of extreme asceticism, self-harm, self-mortification, too extreme, going without, sometimes to kind of punish ourselves, either punish the body or punish an idea of a self who's been indulgent. So now I'm going to cut out the thing I like, the thing I've indulged with, I'm now going to cut it out. And so, sometimes people do that. Or as a belief, that is the way to salvation, to liberation. So I must have absolutely no pleasure anywhere in my life. Sometimes they go that way. You need to see through wise reflection, observation, reflection, what works for you. If you push yourself too harshly or too hard, well, your mind won't settle down. This is what the Buddha found, isn't it? If you don't eat enough, don't sleep enough, push yourself so you get ill, struggle too much with the sort of physical environment, your mind won't be settling down. It'll be hard to establish mindfulness. It'll be hard to recognize defilement. It'll be hard to let go of defilement, because your mind is just not peaceful enough, not settled enough, not still. Whereas if you go the other way, the other extreme of sensual indulgence, well, you're not trying at all anyway. You're just indulging. So you don't even train your mind. You just think, the more I have, the better I'll be. And you probably become, ill or die not very peaceful because you've indulged too much. So we're learning to cultivate the path of mindfulness, insight, wise reflection, and you have to learn for yourself based on your body, because everyone's body is a bit different, what your needs are. Some people feel the cold more than others. Some people feel the heat more than others. Some people need to eat more than others. Some people need to sleep more than others, and so on. You can't always just compare with other people. You also have to look at yourself, what your needs are, and wisely reflect to get that amount. But the teachers always say, just take a little bit less than you would like. Because even your wise reflection, the kilesas can sneak in there. And so you say, oh, I just need a little bit more, then I'll be comfortable, then I can practice. But that desire for a little bit more possibly is delusion. So the teachers always say, well, just take a little bit less sleep than you would really like, a little bit less food than you would really like, a little bit less sensual indulgence than you would like. Then you'll start to see defilements at work. So you have to find that working level for your defilements and this problem of dealing with the material world, comfort, and so on.
Sadhu Lumpur. Another question. Dear Lumpur, who is Mara? Is it a deva, or is it the god of death, or our own defilements? In the sutta, it mentioned that there are Mara's retinues. Was the Buddha disturbed by the same Mara or the retinues? Thank you.
It's kind of all of those things you mentioned. There's what we call Deva Bhuta Mara, the actual being, like you say, the Deva who sits in the highest heaven realm and has a lot of barami, a lot of good qualities, and has made a lot of good karma, but has a view that the highest sensual happiness on offer in the heaven realms is the tops, is the best. So there's a sort of vested interest that Mara has not to let people reach Nibbana, because that would prove that what Mara has is not the best. So there's a sort of desire to keep people attached to their body, to the senses, to the world, to the desire for the world and for comfort and so on. So there's the Mara can appear as the defilements, so the wrong thinking, greed, anger, delusion. There's Mara as the defilements. Mara can be obstacles such as death. When you die, you can't practice. It's turmoil. Your practice stops when you die. If you believe in rebirth, well, you may say, oh, well, I can practice next life. Well, yes, but who knows what conditions you'll have next life. So better to practice this life while you have the right conditions. So death would be Mara in the sense it's a very final obstacle for this life. So there's Mara in the terms of the mind, mental formations and mental states, defilements. There's Mara in the terms of obstacles such as death or illness. There's Mara as a being. So there's many kinds of Mara. But in simplest form, it's anything that obstructs you in the practice or tests you out or deludes you, tricks you, causes you trouble. And so, sometimes we even say a person is Mara. So in the sense, a person who you get infatuated with and you break your precepts would be Mara, even though they're not necessarily Mara, the person, the being, the Deva, but they're Mara in terms of what they do to you. Or, I don't know, things you attach to, a certain kind of your favorite food can be Mara because it just obsesses your mind and you can't do any good things. You become greedy or jealous of your favorite food, perhaps. The Buddha was always being tested by Mara, because Mara has this duty of trying to stop people getting enlightened. And we say he doesn't want them freeing themselves from Mara's trap. So actually the world, the universe is Mara's trap. And so the Buddha, Mara doesn't want the Buddha teaching the Dhamma, because the Dhamma is what leads you out of Mara's trap, freeing you from Mara's trap. So of course Mara will be telling the Buddha, don't bother teaching, put your feet up, enjoy the bliss of enlightenment. No need to waste all your energy teaching people. You know, people are lazy, they don't want to practice anyway. You don't need to practice. Don't need to teach people. So it's, that could be a thought, a doubt, or it could be the Mara, the being actually telling the Buddha or trying to trick the Buddha into not teaching the Dhamma. Or it could be Mara in the form of visions. Monks meditating in the forest, maybe they have a vision of a beautiful woman, or a nun has a vision of a beautiful man. It could be Mara in the terms of a vision of something very fearful, frightening, to try and stop someone to practice. So, you go into the forest and the Mara throws up a vision of a ghost or a wild animal, so you're afraid and you rush back to your monastery, and you never attain the samadhi you were destined to attain. Or if a lay person, your Mara could be like the question earlier about how we get attached to power and the desire for power and fame and fortune. That could be Mara, couldn't it? You got a job and you practice the Dhamma and you keep the precepts and you practice compassion and you meditate, and then one day you have this overwhelming vision that I've got to become a CEO, and you become a ruthless climber on the ladder and you destroy all competition and you forget your meditation and you forget the Dhamma and you just go for it. And then you become CEO, but at the same time you also become very unhappy in yourself. So like Mara would have a little victory there, perhaps. So I'm just giving you a few examples. You can think of your own. So, but Mara can be a being, or it can be a defilement, a mental state, can be an obstacle, can be physical illness or death as well. Many kinds of Mara.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your teaching and hope you are well. How does one deal with negative, intrusive thoughts that is causing a lot of fear about becoming a bad person?
Preserve that part of the mind that wrote this question. Because that's your humanity, that's the good side of you, what we call the hiri, the otapa, the shame, the fear of wrongdoing at work. That's your wisdom. Hiri, otapa really are very close to the quality of wisdom. So you obviously have some wisdom and insight. You are aware that there is good and bad. You are aware that we do have intrusive thoughts. You have them, I have them, and we have to work with them. That's practice. So don't give up. Number one, be patient with your mind and everything it throws up. Number two, keep making effort. Number three, establish mindfulness. Number four, establish wisdom that sees the negative intrusive thought for what it is. It's harmful. It's a cause of suffering. Let it go. Don't feed it. Don't follow it. Just keep at it. And it sounds like you already have what you need. So you are not a bad person. You're already a good person, and just preserve that goodness and improve it and make it really firm and solid, and it won't let you down.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. In my society, people enjoy criticizing other people's aspirations if one wishes to practice Dhamma in the monastery. When my relatives criticize my aspirations, even I know they have a lot of weird views about the world, and I know my aspiration is correct, I still feel bad being told off by people.
Yeah, this is a very common thing we have to deal with. Well, there are different approaches, aren't there? One you don't necessarily have to tell everyone else you're practicing Dhamma. There are those secret Dhamma practitioners in the world who just quietly get on with their practice and they employ the Dhamma for themselves and they practice kindness and compassion with their families, with their different weird ways of looking at things. But they don't talk a lot about the Dhamma. They don't push it onto others to avoid those kind of conflicts and arguments, because arguments are tiring. So there are those practitioners who just quietly get along with it. And, they do their meditation, they keep their precepts, they listen to the Dhamma, they do their dana when they can. And some people may know what they do and some people might never know what they do. It doesn't matter. Your job is you're not here to impress others or convert others to your way of thinking. Your job is to practice with yourself. And also you don't need to give too much importance to those people with their different views, wrong views, weird views, all of that. You just accept them for who they are with compassion, understand, they have their views, that's their choice. But you get on with what you know is right and trust in the goodness of the Dhamma and you'll win them over, or you'll just go your separate ways. It doesn't matter, one or the other. Many people can be won over just through your good behavior, good practice, but some people may never be won over, so you just practice compassion, you wish them well, but don't expect too much from them. And that's all right. We live in a world of many different kinds of people. You're never going to win them all over, so don't try. Don't waste time trying to do that. So don't give too much importance to what other people say. As long as you're practicing the Dhamma and you're not breaking precepts, hurting anyone, just carry on, trust in the goodness of the Dhamma. That's what I did, and it seemed to work. I'm sure you can do it, and many other people do that, and they've found good results too.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. I start to feel a bit scared facing people at work after I saw them doing things in a selfish and nasty way, and didn't feel shame to lie or harm others just for their own benefits. How should I work with these people?
Like the last question, it's tricky, isn't it? Living in the world, there are some good people around and some not so good people around who don't understand Dhamma practice. And even within ourselves, we have moments when we understand the Dhamma and practice it and moments when we don't. So I would always come back to yourself as a starting point. Am I practicing the Dhamma right? Do I understand what the Buddha taught? Am I putting it into practice? Start with yourself, because that's what you can affect. That's what you can change for the better. Then with others, you have to be very patient, compassionate. If you don't have to have much to do with those who don't keep the precepts, well, don't. Just leave them to it and you get on with your practice. And if there are people you find have a sense of integrity, more kind, good people, well, you can spend more time with them if you have the chance. We have a certain amount of choice in life, but not absolute choice. Some things are beyond our control. So when you do have to interact with people who don't have sila, be very careful, because they can lie, they can cheat, they can stab you in the back. So be careful around them. Just interact with them politely, friendly as you can, have compassion in your mind, but don't expect too much from them, and just be careful because they can hurt you. And we have to learn that one, how to deal with those kind of people, because they can hurt us. So that's part of our wisdom training, just to reflect how to deal with this person when they lie or they cheat or whatever. But, it's probably not your job to go and deal with them. You are not the police or the authority or whatever. So you just have to be very patient and work around the problem and enjoy your moments when you don't have to be with those people.
Sadhu Luang Por. Another question. Bhante, how do we cultivate compassion and gratitude? What do we contemplate daily? Thank you.
I think there's a lot of teaching on this around, so you can probably get a lot of good ideas online and so on. But compassion is the thought, may I be free from suffering, and may others be free from suffering in the present and the future. So not only any suffering I'm experiencing now, but also the potential for suffering. So may I, not fall into suffering. May I learn how to avoid creating suffering for myself, for others, and may others also learn how not to suffer. So, that's a whole practice in itself, isn't it? You can develop as a daily meditation on the thought of compassion as an object of mind. It's an attitude you bring in to look at your life, reflect on your life. How am I creating suffering for myself? And here I mean, the suffering that we can change and remedy. Some kinds of suffering we just have to be very patient with, like, if you get ill, well, you may just have to be patient with that. But what you think about things and your attitudes, that can be influenced through the practice. So that's where you introduce compassion thinking for yourself and then for others, how to improve your level of compassion in a wise way, in a balanced way, because obviously there's a lot of suffering in the world and you can't take all of that on your shoulders and worry about everyone or try and solve everyone's problem. You have to approach it in a balanced way, but cultivate it as a theme in your daily life. And I think you'll find it helps your mind to be more peaceful, let go of a lot of negative thoughts. It's the opposite. Compassion is the opposite of cruelty and hatred. So, there'll be some times where we can have compassion easily. Everyone can be compassionate to the cuddly puppy dog or whatever it is, with the things that people like easily. Compassion comes easily and you wish them well. If the puppy dog gets ill, you can smother it with kindness, look after it, feed it, whatever. But then there'll be times when it's hard to have compassion, such as when people do very horrible things to each other. Then your first reaction may be one of hatred or aversion. So you have to work harder at it. But I would say apply compassion where it's going to be effective for you. So if you are noticing you're getting angry or have hatred for a person, group of people, or an animal, or some kind of insect or something, work on it. Keep cultivating compassion. Try and see the life, the humanity in that person, the goodness or the potential for goodness in that person, and keep working on it. As far as gratitude goes, you can sit down and just reflect as a meditation or a part of meditation. Reflect on all the good things you've got in your life. What is going well for you? What is good? What is more positive in your life at this moment and in the past that you can remember, as an antidote, particularly for the mind that is negative, ungrateful, complaining, feeling too sorry for itself, too disappointed, too depressed. Because if you've been born as a human being in this day and age, there's actually a lot you can be grateful for, but you just have to turn your mind to reflect on it and remind yourself of it. So, whether it's to do with your parents, how much they've helped you, brought you into the world, fed you, clothed you, looked after you, loved you, etc. Even though they may have their faults, they've still probably done a lot for you to be happy about and appreciate. Friends, family members, friends, teachers. So number one, the Buddha. You've got the Buddha here and his teachings. That's something I would say we can be incredibly grateful for, that the teachings are still available to us in the written form. We have Sangha, we have living teachers, living practitioners, we have opportunities to practice, places we can go and practice, places we can learn meditation. We have people who will teach and support us in the practice. We have people who help us on the material level as well as the spiritual level. We have doctors and nurses and school teachers and all kinds of people in the world providing services for us, for our benefit. That's something to be grateful for, isn't it? So there's on the material level, the spiritual level, there's a lot you can incorporate, whether it's as a meditation or just as a general reflection. You bring it up, and I find when I do that, my mind becomes brighter, uplifted quite quickly. Even if I've encountered some suffering or difficulty, when you start turning your mind to the expressing appreciation for the good things, the good opportunities, the good people you've met, it drives away a lot of the negativity very quickly. That's from my experience. So say I've been lucky. I've met many enlightened beings in my life. So I just think of them, number one, Luang Por Chah, but there's many others as well. I think of them, and in about half a second, I feel good. I just think, oh, I met Ajahn Chah. That's good enough. This life was worth something. However bad I am and however bad my situation, the fact that I met Luang Por Chah, oh, good enough for me. And then I could go through a list of other arahants and Aryapugalas, and suddenly the mind is going up to another level, and you get a bit of energy, brightness, put more effort into your practice. Think of the Buddha, think of the Dhamma, the Sangha, think of good things I've done, think of good things I've seen other people do. And literally there's people doing good things, worthy things, good things all around the world all the time. It's up to us to turn our mind to recognize that and see it. Because we're bombarded with news and information about how people are doing foolish things, cruel things, terrible things. That's what, media brings to us and people talk about. For some reason, they love to talk about the bad. You have to counter that either in your own thinking or in your conversation. You have to work at it, but do it. Think of the arahants rather than the people who have done a lot of bad things. Think of the people. You don't even have to think of arahants, do you? Just think of mothers and fathers bringing up their kids, people helping each other at work, exchanging help and assistance, people being kind to each other in all walks of life, people doing good things all over the world. It's happening every day. All we have to do is turn our mind to attend to that, think of that, bring it up into our consciousness, and your consciousness will be in a much better place than just focusing on what's wrong with the world. So we do this on different levels, on the level of meditation, just general reflection, conversation, and what you turn your attention to.
Sadhu Luang Por. Are there any other questions? This is your final chance.
Well, time is getting on. Maybe we'll end the session there. So I'm grateful that you all listened attentively. Hopefully you got something out of the session. And we wish you all a happy new year, because it is New Year at this time. And we wish you well with your practice, and we'll see you again next time. May the blessings of Buddha Dhamma Sangha guide you and protect you.
Sadhu, sadhu.